Hi everyone, my name is Liang. Today I would like to talk about carbon frame coming from China. These are the two bikes I bought from China. They're both carbon and they're both copies of Pinarello Dogma. I bought the first bike, the left one, which is painted Pinarello Dogma on it, about 3 years ago. I've done about 7,000-8,000 Ks on it. It's not that much, I don't ride that much. But I have to say, all the years I've been through it, there's no issues whatsoever. The bike remained perfectly. And there is no fatigues, anything I can feel from the materials or any other changes in that 3 years of time. So 2 years later, I've bought the right hand one. This is also the copy of Dogma, the 65.1 version, the upgrade frame, which is internal rooted. And you can see here, I bought this one for my wife. And there are a lot of people thinking about buying those Chinese copies of, carbon fiber bikes, and they're rather cheap. Probably, I would say, can be as low as 8 to 10 times cheaper than the original frames. So I would like to say something about those carbon fiber bikes. I've met someone also who's actually into design of those carbon bikes originally from the Pinarello. They're originally also produced in China also, as well as in Taiwan. Well, as a rider, I would say, as long as these carbon bikes are real, they're made of carbon fibers. I mean, at least they're, Torii 700, 800,000, whatever material you use these days. They're pretty much the same. You wouldn't tell that much, per difference on the material they use, or let's say performance-wise, you can really feel the difference. No, I ride the original, the Genie ones as well, Pinarello Dogma. I can't tell the difference. If as a rider, as you ride on those bikes, really, you really cannot tell the difference. So performance-wise, they're pretty good. But there is another issue I would like to say about those. These are copies. I would like always to stress the point that these are copies, they're not genius. Many questions are asked, like, are they really the same? The exactly same material, the same design, everything, and the quality, the stiffness, the strength, everything exactly the same? No, they're not the same, no. In fact, in a labo test, the difference between the original and the copy can be up to sometimes 15 to 20% strength difference. But there's a question about the strength, this difference. Can you really tell the difference? That's another matter. Consider we as just a normal cyclist or someone really professional level that they say, let's say they can put out constantly 200, 250 watts and at a peak thrust up to 1 kilowatt or 1.2 kilowatt. That would be pretty good cyclist level, but that's really far, really far from the machine test level. That really at that level you can tell the difference between the 20%. It's far more than that. So we're probably talking about 10-15 times more power output. You need to really get into those bikes and can really tell there is a difference. So as a human, really, if you think like that we constantly push out a couple of hundred watts or up to 1,000 watts, at that level you definitely shouldn't be able to tell the difference. That's the truth. If you learn something about the material physics, you understand this really not something you should be able to tell the difference. Most of those copy bikes are made of Torii carbon sheets from Japan, 700. Usually they are made. There is a difference between those carbon sheets material. 700, 800, 1,000. These days are all available. The difference is the higher number you go, the more stiff. They are more lighter. However, there is a problem when it goes too stiff and too light. Generally, the higher you go, the less tolerance the material has. It doesn't bend, it doesn't flex. They really become really stiff. So in that terms, if you hit somewhere, or you really the bike itself is under really a strong big stress, those really high-end carbon fibers break easily because it just doesn't have any tolerance. It just doesn't flex. So personally, I would say you should avoid those really high-end materials. They're very expensive. They are stiffer, yes, but as another thing I would like to say, road cycling is all about riding a long distance. You ride probably hundreds of kilometers. You ride many hours on your bike, you know. So the comfort always comes first. Always the comfort comes the first. You have to think that you stay on the thing for hours and hours, and if it's really that stiff, it doesn't have any tolerance. I mean, it's not something nice. It's not something you'd like. Plus the fact it brings a lot more risk, higher risk of to crack and to break. So I would say you should avoid, stay away from those high-level materials, which is applicable these days in bike making. The original models of these bikes are probably, and I'm sure they're mixed materials. There are 1,000, those high really, Tory 1,000, 700, probably 800, all those different materials mixed to probably shave a little bit of weight up to maybe 50 grams or something and remain really stiff and solid. So the higher end material you use, definitely that means that the bike will cost you more as well. There's the main thing I would like to talk about this issue is it right to buy a copy and to call that a Pinarello? Well, I don't think so. Pinarello is a big name. It's been there for 100 years, over 100 years. And those bike companies has a very rich and thick history. And when you look at develop a special, a certain model of a bike, it takes years of development. The R&D works, and the design, probably they have to do wind tunnels, they have to give sponsors to professional cycling teams, they have to do a lot of marketing programs, a lot of costs in it. So we are probably going up to really huge budget, probably up to millions if you go through those wind tunnels and those marketing expenses to think about developing one new model. And that $1 million cost in the bike developing has to come with a selling price. I mean, in the end, consumers have to pay for the money, and that's where you got those, original frames that cost a few thousand euros. That's absolutely correct, because you have to pay for that cost. Everything costs to develop the development of a frame. That's the biggest cost, really, the biggest cost to develop a model, a bike. The copies, they don't pay for that. So they save tremendous amount of money. That's why you don't have to pay that part. That is the biggest part of the game. And the only thing they have to invest in making a copy is to copy the mold made of steel. That can be expensive, up to $20,000 or $30,000 or more. But that's the only, really pretty much the only large expenses they have, plus the study period which they have to make the copy takes probably 5, 6, 7, 8 months minimum. And the real production cost of carbon fiber, once you have the design, you have the study, once you have the mold, the exactly mold, and only the material cost and production cost is probably somewhere around $150 for each bike. The real production cost, it's pretty much nothing. Yes. But as I said, every piece of the cost will add into the end to the end value, the price of the bike, and that's why if the company has done that R&D work, has done the design, all the tests, the marketing works, everything. So those costs, it's correct that we should pay for those costs for a couple of $1,000s. So if you want to buy a copy, that's no problem, but I think we shouldn't put the name on it. When it is not a Pinarello, and it's not a Dogma, it's just a carbon bike from China. And they can be just as good as the original Pinarello or any other bikes. I mean, these days they make also specialized They also make tracks. All those top bikes, the carbon frames are made in China or Taiwan. It doesn't matter. It's all made in the Far East, and there is no arguments about that. That's what is the story. I mean, the whole industry is about. And they are different, as I said, up to 20% probably strength difference in real level tests, what you can tell, but those are the difference you're not be able to tell. No, as a human, as a rider, you can't tell the difference. I mean, for you it will be just exactly the same. Exactly the same. There are no really, I mean, we don't find these days really crappy made carbon fiber bikes coming from China. They're all going through a series of tests, EN tests, all those tests that are necessary. And so I would say it's pretty safe to buy those bikes, those copies. If you are a guy who thinks that I would like to use those bikes, I would like to have a carbon bike. I would like to have those really top quality carbon bikes to use, to practice every day and ride a lot of kilometers and to really throw around with it. I think you should get probably the copy. Just don't put the name on it. Don't put the badge of Pinarello or track or specialized, no logos on it. That's why I put my personal names, other names on my second bike. There's no Pinarello badges. There's no Pinarello names, although the model is Pinarello Dogma. I think that would be more justified because we didn't pay for that, right? If you pay somewhere around 300, 400, 500 euros for a carbon frame, that we definitely don't pay anything for those hard works that the Pinarello company has done. All those huge cost has been going into the project of developing this new frame. So it's not right to say that this is Pinarello, this is Dogma. No, it is not. It's just a good carbon frame. It's a good carbon bike from the company, and all the Chinese copies are just a copy in the model. They're never gonna make their own models because obviously they don't have the financial means and neither the purpose to spend so much money into develop their own models. So they're just gonna copy the model. So that also guarantees you actually in another way that these bikes are tested. Those designs, those shapes, the tubes, everything are tested, are guaranteed to be safe to ride, everything. So for a rider, you should probably also think in a way that you are able to upgrade your frame every 2 years or 3 years, something like that. So if I buy a copy Pinarello, it'll be